Why use the Bitcoin blockchain?
Bitcoin is not just a technology. It's not just money. It's a political movement. Not in like the red versus blue type of politics, but more in a way where a group of people are demanding certain specific things from government, from the way that we organize politically.
So if I'm a person and I want to preserve my capital for hundreds and hundreds of years, I'm not going to go put my money in a 60-40 bond. I'm not going to put my money in cash. I'm not going to put my money in government treasuries. I'm going to put my money in an asset that is immortal, digital, based on rules, not rulers, that I know another man cannot bend the rules of the game to dilute my capital. And that is just Bitcoin. Welcome to the first episode of Teohan's Talk, a show where we delve deeply into Bitcoin, emerging technologies, and the future of computation, energy, and civilization. It is my great honor today to be joined by Mr. Rafa Cordon. Rafa is a Duke alum, co-founder of Simple Proof, and OG Bitcoiner. Rafa, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Theo. I really appreciate all our conversations. We've known each other for a couple of years now, I think, and always happy to chat.
100%. We're going to have a great time today talking about all the things on the agenda. So I'm super stoked to be able to have this conversation. I know we've been having a few of these over the years, and I think we're going to have an absolutely fantastic time. So just by way of introduction, I am pretty familiar with Simple Proof and your work, but just to kind of reiterate these like meta points for the viewers. Simple Proof, as far as my understanding, basically used the Bitcoin blockchain to open source election tallies in Guatemala and most recently in the United States, kind of serving as this way, having this notion of transparency and free and fair elections leveraged to an extent that we've really never seen in the history of humanity. I mean, this is the first of its kind in terms of transparency, in terms of how I see my vote being tallied among my fellow citizens, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, Simple Proof is a tech startup. It's a solution. It's a software as a service solution for timestamping data onto the Bitcoin blockchain. And Simple Proof's been used by elections officials both in Guatemala and in the United States to protect election records in an immutable manner. The way this works is that the hash or digital fingerprint of any file, in this case it's election records, like voting records, the hash or digital fingerprint gets included, or there's a proof of the hash in the Bitcoin blockchain, a specific block height. And so you can point to a specific block on the Bitcoin blockchain and anchor data onto it. And so in the future, if someone comes out with different information, well, then you really have a proof of a specific point in time when a piece of data existed. Voting records are very important in that, for that specific use case, because the voting use case is very benefits from this, because you need to make sure that a certain piece of information, in this case election results, existed at a point in time and that no one can change it in the future. Other types of use cases are digital evidence, for example. Okay, so digital evidence is collected for an investigation, a trial, or whatever. How can we prove that how can all interested parties make sure that information was not changed? So yeah, digital information, like digital evidence, any type of digital record where it's very important to prove that existed in a certain point in time. It turns out that all government records are sort of very sensitive to people being someone being able to change them in the future. And so that's sort of our mission. We are helping create immutable history by partnering with different government institutions to help them protect their electronic records.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, voting rights and transparency when it comes to voting, I mean, that sounds like something that should be of pretty paramount importance when it comes to the organization of society. I mean, I think that's a largely agreed upon staple of democracy, that elections should be free and fair, should be transparent, and not only when it comes to these elections, but collecting evidence or immutable history. I think Simple Proof, like, genuinely is pioneering the way in that sort of transition from kind of, we have this history, but we're not too sure. We just kind of have this trust me, bro dynamic in which we come to a consensus. But through this technology, which you're describing, which I assume is the open timestamps with the Bitcoin block height and all this, can you guys are really just taking it to the next level. And I mean, immutable history is. I think there's a scene in Game of Thrones where the guy says, "We just repeat the history until we believe it." And I wouldn't want to be that guy in 2025 in a world with simple proof, open sourcing all the documents, all the tallies, and yeah, it's awesome what you guys are doing.
It doesn't have to be like we're not publishing documents. At the end of the day, we are a service provider. Our customer decides whether they want to publish the documents. For example, there are certain documents that our customers don't want to publish. An example is information that contains personally identifiable information (PII). So another example in the sort of elections world is voter rolls. So voter rolls is the list of people who are registered to vote in a specific area, in a specific precinct or district. Um, and so one of our customers in Georgia used Simple Proof to protect voter rolls. So in this case, what they did is they hashed or generated a fingerprint of the document locally in their computer and only timestamped that hash so that the voter rolls, that have very sensitive information, that never left their computer. They only generated the proof, and so when the day that voter rolls close, because there's like a deadline when okay, we have the final list. This is going to be sort of sealed, and this is the list of authorized voters for this precinct. And so they timestamped using simple proof. They timestamped the voter rolls, and so in case someone in the future says, "Hey, you're like adding more people," well, they can go back and prove that they're not adding more voters because the voter roll was closed on a specific day and it's referenced to the Bitcoin
Hmm.
blockchain.
Interesting.
So it's both public and private information, but just being able to anchor it to Bitcoin makes it enormously powerful. But because no one can change it in the future, and there wasn't a way to really solve for this like back in the day. There really wasn't a sort of a scalable digital way to do it until Bitcoin emerged and the concept of a blockchain. So blockchain wasn't invented for Bitcoin. This goes back, I think, to the early '90s, back in Bell Labs. The idea of a blockchain was invented by Stuart Haber and Scott Stornetta, these researchers that were working on cryptography. But there really wasn't a sort of public blockchain like what we know of a public blockchain like the Bitcoin blockchain. And so now that there's the Bitcoin is available, we can consume this sort of source of truth that is like a global or universal source of truth that everyone can reference. And so using that just makes it super powerful, because the idea of all these generative AI tools like open AI and all these things can generate fake information on a massive scale and like super easy, right? It's like super easy to use. And so the fear here is that as AI gets better, in a couple of years, you won't be able to tell if I'm a real person or not. Oh, did the video
Yeah,
go
I think
down?
you might be cutting out, but I mean, yeah, I totally agree. AI and regenerative AI per se is one of those things that we really don't know how fast it will escalate and when. I think a wise man once said that AI is the worst today that it will ever be, and so who knows like what capacity we'll have to forge these documents. to what extent those documents can be corrupted, and ultimately to what extent history can be rewritten. And it's actually a perfect segue into our next topic of sort of the future implications of where simple proof would kind of position itself in this new age of AI, decentralized compute. But I just had one quick question on one of the things you were mentioning earlier. Kind of
Hmm.
a Bitcoin core noob myself. I don't pride myself on it. I definitely have to go back and look through the original developing docs and the GitHub. But you mentioned the way in which the open timestamps operate in the sense that participants or users of the open timestamp can prove that something occurred in the blockchain without actually having to release the documents themselves to prove it. Is that similar to
Yes.
this like concept of like zero sum proof that kind of has been circulating around the computer science community these last few years?
Zero knowledge. Yeah,
Zero knowledge.
yeah. It's a similar idea. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my camera.
Okay. All right, we're back with after the technical difficulties. So Rafa, this next question I have is actually a perfect segue from what you were just mentioning about mutable history. But you've mentioned in the past that you wanted to use open timestamps to kind of leverage that technology for the Declaration of Independence. And so my question to you is kind of what is the significance of that in the whole context of immutable history? Why is it important to begin with to do that moving forward for the future of the United States of America, or for the continuation of humanity, and what's the significance?
So we set out to use Bitcoin to protect public records. We believe that government records are information that a lot of people care about and therefore should be protected in an immutable manner, meaning that no one can change them. And if you think about it, the most important government document is the Declaration of Independence, because that's where you know all other documents are derive their legitimacy from, right? United States declares independence from England and creates this new country that establishes several institutions, and each institution has their own records, and so on and so forth. And so it's a foundational document that should be protected in a way that no one can change. And why is that important? Well, next year it's the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And if you think, all right, so AI is pretty cool now. It's hard to you know tell the difference between something that's AI generated and human generated. What about the next 250 years, right?
Right.
How's that going to look?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that these very important records and documents are protected in a way that no one can change in the next 10, 50, 100, 250 years? And so I think it's very important to do this, because as AI gets better, when you ask an AI to do some research or generate any type of document or any type of information, it will search the internet. It will search different repositories, and there should be a single source of truth regarding documents such as the Declaration of Independence and other important information. Sorry, and so I
Right.
think we think it's very important that as AIs become more embedded in our life, we can still reference a single source of truth regarding
Mhm.
things like the Declaration of Independence.
Right. Right.
And so if we do it now, I think we'll be able to secure it for you know in perpetuity, as long as Bitcoin is still functioning, right?
Yeah. In perpetuity. It's an immortal piece of documentation that cannot be tampered with. It's there. It's
Yeah.
there.
And I think if you look back at examples of, authoritarian regimes, and like any type of, regime trying to change history, there's a lot of examples from the Soviet communist regime where people would fall out of favor with Joseph Stalin and would literally get wiped from history. There's photos of people who were like, Photoshop from, using Photoshop from back in the day, that were deleted off of pictures. There's a lot of examples of that,
And
and I
it
think
must be
George
worse than
Orwell,
getting canceled. Just
yeah, deleted from
Photoshop
history.
from Mr. Stalin's photo shoot book.
George Orwell had a word for it. He called it unpersons.
On person.
He has like a, incredible. There's incredible quotes, but there's one that says, "Whoever controls the past controls the future.
Hmm. Right.
Whoever controls the
Powerful.
present controls the past. Who controls the past controls the future." Meaning, if you're gonna affect, the records of history, then you can, you know, change what people think in the future. And so, having a platform like Bitcoin
Hmm.
that can, create this source of truth that everyone can look at and reference,
Yeah.
I think is a very powerful tool that didn't exist
Yeah.
before, right?
Actually, hearing this perspective for the first time in our conversations, it kind of it helps me draw this analogy between the truth and this like thermodynamically enclosed system. And historically, we've seen how this system of truth has been able to be tampered with, and you've got kind of energy being created from no like the law of thermodynamics is that like and energy cannot be created or destroyed. But this issue with fiat currency or with tampering the truth is that you're creating like something out of nothing, or you're deleting something that was there. And so you're basically playing this figure of God almost in the free market or in history, and you're applying these unnatural, you're bending the rules of the universe, which is like, I don't know, that doesn't sound good to me. But in the sense that truth is this like should be this perfectly secure, thermodynamically secure system, and through simple proof, through Bitcoin, through this technology, people's truthful energy in a sense, or history, like just the truth, it's being perfectly conserved for the rest of human history. It's mutable, it's digital, and it's immortal. And so if I'm a person and I want to preserve my capital for hundreds and hundreds of years, I'm not going to go put my money in a 60/40 bond. I'm not going to put my money in cash. I'm not going to put my money in government treasuries. I'm going to put
Nope.
my money in an asset that is immortal, digital, based on rules, not rulers, that I know another man cannot bend the rules of the game to dilute my capital. And that is just Bitcoin. And like you're saying, it's not even through capital, it's also through truth. And the economic energy that we create in society, like that is the truth. Like the value that we provide to people in the free market, in a sense, it's this really interesting analogy between the truth and like economic energy. And I think it's just fascinating. I just thought of this analogy, and just like how truth can be this secure system. And now
Yep.
now thanks to simple proof and this tool, this pristine monetary instrument, um, it just cannot be tampered with unless Bitcoin fails, unless Bitcoin is no longer decentralized and secure. And
Yeah.
then this concept of the swarm, right? Now we all have an incentive to make sure that Bitcoin succeeds. Bitcoin should go to the moon because we ought to send Bitcoin to the moon as a society. Like we have a moral mandate to send Bitcoin to the moon. We have a moral mandate to adopt Bitcoin. And same thing, I think we also have a moral mandate to preserve that truth. And so I guess that being said, it was a little bit of another uncalled for rant, but I think this kind of segues into like the question we had earlier before our unfortunate technical misfortunes, but wanted to ask just why use the Bitcoin blockchain. I know you mentioned that blockchain had been utilized in the past, like it existed in the past, but there wasn't a Bitcoin blockchain per se. And so me, being Gen Z, and a big purpose of this podcast is to communicate Bitcoin and what it is to the next generations. Light the flame, pass on the torch. And the question that I get all the time, almost on a day to day basis, is why Bitcoin? Why not Ethereum or XRP? And I kind of even cringe at myself saying those three things in the same sentence. Like I don't even want yuck, disgusting. But yeah, it's a rational question that people have when you're coming in and you're looking at all these Ponzi schemes and you're wondering, well, isn't this one also just another Ponzi scheme? But as you get deeper and deeper, man, you realize it's you're thermodynamically securing truth forever. That's
Yeah, Peter Todd has a quote. He says, "Bad guys don't have time machines," and
yeah,
so
yeah,
not yet, right? And so as long as bad guys don't have time machines, they can't go back and delete Bitcoin, and they can't
right.
delete history that's written on in Bitcoin. If you don't have, if you don't use Bitcoin as this anchor, then yeah, anybody can generate anything that's fake and claim that it's the real thing, right? You can just right click, do a right click on a document and change the date, right? Um, we're using open timestamps. We're kind of trying to replace or revolutionize the way that timestamping has been done for digital systems. The timestamping protocol that's currently used is a protocol from 2001 or 2000 called RFC 3161 Trusted Timestamping Server. That's what it's called. And so it's the old school thing, time stepping protocol that's been around for a long time. And we think we have a better solution.
Mhm,
Why Bitcoin? As you said, like you said it yourself, there's no why anything else other than Bitcoin, right?
mhm,
There's when you care about immutability, why use anything else? I mean, there's really no reason to use anything else other than Bitcoin. And I get that question a lot because, and I, I have to be honest here. I learned about Bitcoin and then I went down the like shitcoin rabbit hole and then came out the other side and I was like, okay, if I'm gonna invest time and energy that is limited in my life, it better be into Bitcoin because it's something that I believe in and that I'm going to be proud of. And so that's why I work in Bitcoin. And why are we using Bitcoin in Simple Proof? Because why would I use anything else? There's
mhm.
really no other digital system that's been running nonstop for 15 years without anybody being able to change its history or
Right.
alter it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I
And
think
I think the meta point there is that Bitcoin conserves your economic energy more greatly than any other protocol or system that we currently have. And like you said, I mean, there is no second best crypto asset or any asset in general. There will just be one, and all the other ones will fall to the best one through the avalanche of consensus. And it's not just like some random decision that you made or I made or any other Bitcoiner made. It's by studying the true properties of this technology and coming to the realization that I rather not be stolen from. I rather like have the economic energy that I've created or the truthful energy that I've created in the free market for others. I'd like to conserve that, and then I'd like to deploy that in the sense in the ways that I see best fit. And so everyone and people look at Bitcoiners like these like Ponzi scheme warriors or trying to like pull the rug. Well, there is no rug to pull in Bitcoin. It just goes up because it absorbs this all the collective economic energy without giving any like singular actor any sort of advantage. Like you cannot rug pull Bitcoin without there like being a true like economic some sort of something going wrong in the free market. Like, there is no king of Bitcoin. We're all
Nope.
kings of Bitcoin. We're the commoners of Bitcoin, and that's the game that I rather be in. I mean, I rather not opt into a game in which I've got someone that can harvest me for time. I mean, that's essentially what, I guess it's a big word, but like wage slavery. I'm getting these dollars, and in return, I'm like exchanging my time for these
Yes.
dollars that I don't even understand. Like, why am I even going to that job, or why am I even engaging in this activity to get these dollars? And then I'm getting this currency, and I don't even understand what it is. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think for many people, it's very hard to look beyond the paradigm, and truly ask yourself, what is this money that I'm making? Like, why am I holding it in cash? Or why do I have this 60/40 portfolio just because this financial advisor on Reddit like told me it was the best like course of action? And it's hard to sort of shift your perspective. Especially, there's this philosophical term that I was looking at the other day. The Serpico effect. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's apparently it's when enough people are engaging in a system of like malfeasance, then if you whistleblow, then like they're gonna find a way to like make sure it just like doesn't you're like cooked.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's a combination of that or people being so much so on this like hedonic treadmill that it's hard to look beyond that initial paradigm. But all I can say is that as an individual actor that wants to conserve my economic energy to the greatest extent, without that being kind of manipulated by another person, the only protocol for that is Bitcoin. And it manifests itself in so many ways, just like Simple Proof using Bitcoin as this organic market driven buffer to authoritarian technology. I mean, we've had so many debates in the US about, oh, like, are elections actually legitimate? Are like the people voting like real? Like, I remember in 2024 and 2020, this was a huge debate. And now that we have the solution, it's crickets. Where do they go? And it's time for all these like political activists that were politically activating on Instagram in 2020 to come back and see that we actually have this solution. It's right in front of us, and it's crazy. It's a crazy time to be alive, because it only happens once in human history.
And I think from previous conversations that you and I have had, when we've discussed the idea of Bitcoin as a political movement, right? Not just Bitcoin is not just a technology. It's not just money. It's a political movement. Not in like a, political, the red versus blue type of politics, but more in a way where people are demanding certain specific a group of people are demanding certain specific things from government, from the way that we organize politically, meaning um, government shouldn't be, some of the ideas being, um, government shouldn't be able to, just print money without any restraint, right? um,
Mhm.
Things like freedom of speech, um, private property. These are core to Bitcoin and Bitcoiners, if you think about it.
Mhm.
So it is a group of people that share certain common political beliefs, and it is a movement. It's a political movement, right? That's growing. I think I read somewhere that 30 or 40 million people just in the U.S. hold Bitcoin, and so people are going to buy Bitcoin because the number go up, but then you go down that rabbit hole, and it is a type of awakening when you realize what Bitcoin really means. And it's just it's a mental virus. It's a meme that
Yeah.
meme as in the original definition of memes, like meme being the idea version of a gene. Genes are like a way to spread genetic information, and memes are a way of spreading ideas, right? And so that's why I think Bitcoin is unstoppable, because it's not just a technology, it's a political movement, and it's
Spiritual
not going to
cleansing.
shut up, right?
Yeah. It's,
And if you think about it, politicians and people in government are paying attention to it,
yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
see how the recent administration in the US really paid attention to Bitcoin and did what was right. Um, and I think it's unstoppable. There's
Yeah.
30 or 40 million people demanding this.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
yeah.
just a bunch of guys with an idea in a room. That is central bank, right?
Who gave those guys those ideas to begin with?
Who gave those
Everyday
guys
people.
authority
Yeah.
to do that?
Yeah. Crazy. Crazy. And yeah, like you said, 40 million people, Americans owning Bitcoin, and it's just going to grow. I mean, personally, I wouldn't want to attack a hornet's nest. It doesn't sound fun, and it's not because one hornet individually can take me down, but it's because this notion of death by a thousand needles. When you attack Bitcoin, you attack every single node on that decentralized protocol because we all have this vested interest in the continued use and continued use of Bitcoin, and that's all it takes.
It feels right. It's like abolishing slavery, right?
Yeah, and in a way, it is. It's the slavery of 2025 of the 20th century. Um, but
It's these ideas that felt right, right, and people demanded, and more people learned about it. Yes, this is what's right. Abolish slavery,
yeah,
right?
yeah, which
And it
now
happened.
kind of
That
seems
was a
obvious
political
to us,
movement.
but
Abolitionists.
yeah,
That abolitionists were a political movement.
yeah,
That's just one example.
yeah. I think in the same way, in 100 years, they're just going to be looking at us and saying, How could it not have been so obvious? Like, why would they go into these jobs and getting these dollars that just was going to zero? Like, they're just trading their time for a unit of account that has no value,
And you see these
effectively.
political movements in history, the United States independence movement. You see it in Japan, the Meiji Restoration. A lot of political movements where it's like,
Yeah,
this is not right.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
French
yeah. I agree.
Revolution.
It feels like yeah, just the transition feels so natural to this Bitcoin standard that we're heading to, and every time I have these conversations with Bitcoiners or in Vegas or wherever they're doing these Bitcoin conferences nowadays, it's always so interesting to see how this like huge group of people like are so disagreeable. They have all these different thoughts, different backgrounds, from worlds apart, but they've all come to consensus on this one radical idea of Bitcoin. And like
Yep.
growing up, I mean, I've lived in all over the world, and I've quite never, and I think I've sought a group of these like these people like people that are oriented in the way of kind of looking forward and trying to think about the future in this way and just being thoughtful and engaging in discourse. I think, yeah. And in all my time, like across China and the US and going through all these college campuses, and not these not like mediocre college campuses, and I've never found that level of thought or the ability to engage in these conversations. I've never found that quite like the community of Bitcoin. And when that clicked for me, I think that was the
Wow.
final like I don't know that there must be a term for this. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it was I'm done. I'm like big Bitcoin
You
naturalist.
found your people.
I found my people, found my community. So next thing
That's
you
how I
know,
feel
you're doing
when I meet
Bitcoin
with
podcasts
Bitcoiners.
and you buy a plane
I
just for the
found my
background.
people. That's funny. Yeah, it's because there's this share. You know, Bitcoiners come from all sorts of walks of life, different places, but there is a shared set of beliefs
Mhm.
that Bitcoin creates among people. There's this shared understanding of what is right and wrong, right?
Right.
We may have our differences and everything, but there's a core, there's the
Mhm.
shared core beliefs, and that's why Bitcoin is
Yeah.
unstoppable.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah. Yeah, and like you were saying,
that's what
the
makes it
right to
unstoppable.
liberty and the right to viable property, the foundations on which the United States was built on. But today we're kind of seeing those foundations being withered away because of the broken monetary paradigm. And
Yes,
Bitcoin, because it's perfected the properties of money, has is this like resurgence of these once radical American values that we agree they're just generally good. Like as a
absolutely,
society, these are the values that we want to organize around. And yeah, it's
absolutely.
just like you said, the political
A
movement
lot
is
of the
impossible.
the original American principles in the founding of the country are sort of implemented through Bitcoin, right?
Mhm. Right.
Implemented because it's an implementation of a philosophical concept, I would
Mhm.
say.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
technical
Layer
implementation of,
zero, layer zero of society.
yeah.
I love it. Okay. I want to transition a little bit to a topic that we had discussed earlier, but I think maybe because of our technical misfortunes, we glossed over it. But I
Hmm.
think it was important, so I want to bring it back up. But you had mentioned that these AIs in the future, because of the way they're kind of coded or whatever, they're going to look for when using documents or when engaging other with other AIs, they're going to look for these documents on in cyberspace, and they're going to want to find the document that is valid. And the most efficient, perhaps is not the right word, but the best way to do that for this AI is going to be using the Bitcoin blockchain, using the open timestamp. Could you talk a little bit
Just like
about
the idea of like how do we know what's true in this AI generated, if you look, if you scroll through social media, how many AI generated videos are popping up now,
that?
right? And each time it starts looking like harder to it's harder to tell what's real or not for us. But also, if you think about it, an AI that is tasked with doing doing some activity, an AI agent, it's also supposed to search for truth, right?
Hmm.
And so you instruct this AI to do research on your behalf. How does the AI know which is the original document, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so the best way is to do it using Bitcoin, right?
Right.
To reference Bitcoin. So it's not going to be just humans, looking at documents and trying to tell which is real, because
Hmm.
I think AI is like unstoppable as well. AI is another thing that
Right.
nobody is going to be able to stop. But how will an AI know which is the original document,
Right.
and how will you, as the sort of owner of this AI, um, how will you be able to verify that the AI is looking at the original document as well, right?
Yeah.
So if I
Yeah.
ask an AI to pull up the Declaration of Independence, where's it getting from? Where's what's its source, right?
CNN.
How can I verify that it's not some, training data that came
Hmm.
out of,
Yeah.
wherever, right?
Yeah. That's where the whole thing of immutable history comes in. So we
Yes,
will we,
and
we
that's
need
what.
AI. It's taking society the next leg up, and it would be better to have those AIs trained on the actual truth, the real history that we've had, rather than some like open AI centralized AI service provider trying to change that to its own benefit in a way that we don't even know. But just
Or
by
OpenAI's own copy of the Declaration of Independence.
yeah,
I
saying
don't trust it.
Sam Altman was a time traveler and he was the king of the West Ranch in Georgia. I don't know.
The thing is, these AI systems, they're trained, and there's the whole, what's it called, the like human in the loop optimization, the fine tuning, or the alignment piece. And so any AI system within its alignment part, process, um, the alignment piece. Well, how can I say this? The alignment part intrinsically um, inputs a perspective or a worldview, right? Because people who are going to be working on the alignment, they will, or the AI that does the alignment, any technology has a specific worldview, has a, technology is political. I can't remember who
Yeah.
said that quote, but any technology, maybe Heidegger, any technology is political. And let me look it up. Technology is political. Anyway, I can't remember who said that, but uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
just like an AI will encode certain political or philosophical ideas, um, we want it to reference the truth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially given that millions of people are going to be using this thing for data collation, collection to engage in like discourse, and by engaging with that AI, so many of their like own like thought patterns are going to be influenced by whatever algorithm is sort of feeding into the AI. And so I think I don't necessarily align with the like AI fear mongers, but I do think there is a case to be made about how, from a social perspective, AI can be used to manipulate people to believe things that maybe aren't even correct, and not necessarily by like some like evil global scheme that tried to do that, but just by like random occurrence that it was pulling the wrong documents that weren't necessarily the ones that were immutably timestamped, but some other random documents, and it used that to generalize something and relay information that was incorrect. And I think it's the same sense that capital can the incentives of deploying capital are kind of misaligned when you're using a monetary ledger that itself defies the laws of physics and thermodynamics. When you are operating under a system of truth that also defies those same properties, then the impact on like the socio psychological impact on people will kind of be the same. And so these like properties of money manifest themselves into truth and kind of transcend that layer into just like our thought patterns. Maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's all connected in a sense, and it's really the beauty of it. And I think to summarize the meta point here, because I think this is like in 5-10 years, this is really when we're gonna like, because, right, AI is the worst today that it will ever be, and it's just gonna keep
Hmm.
better, keep getting better and better. In 5 years, if I open up my Instagram or even my Nostr and I see a video, how do I know that like a human recorded it? How do I not know it was just generated in some lab or someone's basement? And now they're, for whatever reason, they have these malicious incentives to propagate fake news. And we see how it is even today. I mean, there's so many things on the internet that's just completely wrong. I mean, who
Yeah.
knows what will happen when AI is powerful enough to propagate totally just terrible truths, and how will people be manipulated by those? The only solution is so again. So if it's interesting, this parallel again. If my mission is to gather the most truthful, evidence based information, then I'm going to go look to the Bitcoin protocol. I'm going to look for the documents that were openly stamped, time stamped. It's the same way. It's the same thing with money. If I'm going to look for the monetary system that's going to preserve my economic energy for, immortally, digitally, pristinely, and immutably, I'm going to engage. I'm going to save my money in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drop the mic, Momo. Over. It's over.
It's over. It is the when people ask, when we talk to potential customers and they ask us, why should we do this? The answer is, why shouldn't you do this?
Right.
What's the downside, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why shouldn't you timestamp to Bitcoin every single government record,
Is there something to hide?
right?
See. See.
That's the question. Me as a citizen, I want every single government record timestamped to Bitcoin. It doesn't have to be simple proof. Open timestamps is an open protocol.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
you can use a Mac or you can use a Linux computer, right?
Hmm. Right.
Doesn't matter.
I feel like that in itself would also have such a deflationary impact. So many of these like third parties, like CME, or for example, like we have these financial institutions that kind of play this role of oversight and role of making sure that party A can trust party B because like party A's database is totally separate from party B's database. And they need this like third party intermediary to make sure that funds get settled, that one party doesn't like get it doesn't get liquidated before making this transaction. And I
Yeah,
guess it's the same with these government institutions. They have all these documents that are getting stored somewhere. They have these accountants. They have these. There are all these like government roles that are created because of bottlenecks in the system. And Bitcoin is in itself driving this deflationary impact by reducing these bottlenecks, making systems more efficient, and just removing these bottlenecks, making things more efficient that we really don't need. All that energy that society is consecrating to these roles could be directed towards other things and who knows what those things could actually be in the future when they arise. And it kind of aligns here with this like whole Jeff Booth deflationary thesis in which AI is going to drive these massive productivity gains. You're going to have these companies being automated by one AI agent, sorry, that once had 1,000 to 2,000 employees. And so that is a massive productivity gain, and that's going to have a massively crazy deflationary impact on society. And so
yeah,
obviously here's the role of Bitcoin. It's because it's a pristine and immutable monetary instrument. It will be like absorbing those gains from deflation because like life should be
because
getting better
those
every
gains are
year
going
as
to be
we're
harvested
driving
by
more progress.
centralized fiat currencies.
Yeah, 100%. And but it's interesting to think that Bitcoin itself would also be driving the deflation. So not only absorbing deflate productivity gains from certain systems, but it in itself is driving the deflation. So it's just this like avalanche of and yeah, the 10-year outlook. I mean, I know when one of those first discussions we had, I remember you showing me the U.S. the global M2 money supply and the U.S. fiscal deficits, and I remember looking at it and I was like, what is that? Like, why do I care that like the U.S. is $40 trillion in debt? Like, it's probably chill. Like, we'll probably find someone to pay it off. Like, it's cool. But unfortunately, like that's not necessarily how it works. And when we have that deflation, these we're going to have more inflation as a direct byproduct of that. Our inflation rate, separate from the CPI, is going to have to be, who knows, plus 52%, and they'll record it as 2% and say there is a geopolitical shock, and so they won't record it in the CPI. But yeah, and
Yeah,
it's interesting to think that I think I think so. My extension of this like Booth whatever thesis is sort of that inflation would lead to sort of more central planning because there'd be more sort of like socialism in the government because people would look for the government for more answers, and then the government would print more money, And then so the incentives would keep getting distorted, and it would make sense that in that scenario, when incentives keep on getting more and more distorted, there's now more of this underlying incentive to change history, uh, just by extension. Like they'd have more an incentive to do it, to just to make it look like everything is rainbow and sunshine on the outside,
Yeah.
and then gaslight people. This is like this idea of weaponized virtue. It's okay. Well, your ribeye steak was $4, 100 years ago, but now it's like 400, let's say.
Hmm.
But just pick like, but you shouldn't even be eating the ribeye steak to begin with. Here's a study that it gives you like cardiovascular disease, and like there's something morally wrong with eating the ribeye steak. So this is like this. I feel like this weaponized virtue layer, and it, I guess I'm just ideating here now, but it'd be interesting to think if this notion of
You'll own
misalignment.
nothing and be happy. What was the
Yeah,
World Economic Forum thing?
yeah, it's exactly it, and it's all in people's faces. It's open, like
You'll own nothing and be
yeah,
happy. And like, oh wow, sounds
yeah,
great.
no thanks, or rather not.
Everything's gonna be a subscription.
Yeah, man, crazy,
Great
crazy
man.
stuff. But yeah, so why would these companies not open timestamp all their documents? Well, because they want to stay in business, and that's it. You know, it's I think it's quite
Control the past.
yeah, quite simple. Whew. All right. Well, that was a. I feel like we got through a lot of different topics there. It's pretty awesome.
Cool. Awesome, Theo.
Dope. All right. I guess just for some like closing thoughts, do you want to share maybe with the like viewers kind of these like potential for like raising maybe a new round for Simple Proof, or your guys' like future plans, where you guys heading? I know you're heading to Lugano, Switzerland in a few
Yep.
days for a
Yeah, we were
conference.
invited to present to pitch Simple Proof at the Lugano Plan B conference. We are proposing a project to timestamp all of the city of Lugano's historical archives. Well, that's going to be next week, so hopefully we're successful there, and we get that city to start generating immutable history.
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Rafa Cordon, is there anywhere on social media that viewers can find you, contact you, find your info, find Simple
Yep.
Proof info?
Simpleproof.com. You can visit there. You can also find me on X at Rafa underscore Cordon. So feel free to follow Simple Proof on X as well. And yeah, please send me any comments or ideas. Would love to hear them.
Dope. Well, Rafa, it's been a pleasure to have spent this time with you, and I appreciate you dropping some wisdom and knowledge on the future of immutable history. So it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming. Um,
Thanks for having me, Theo. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.